This is Frameform.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Frameform, a podcast about movies, moving, and everything in between. My name is Claire Schweitzer, and for those of you who are new to the show, Frameform is a podcast collaboration between myself, Screen Dance Collective's Hannah Weber, and Dance Cinema's Jen Ray. Frameform presents a combination of interviews and panel discussions on the intersections of dance, technology, and culture. We have 3 seasons available for all of your binge listening pleasure, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. We are thrilled to kick off Season 4 in collaboration with Dance Camera West, LA's longest continuously running annual dance film festival, by presenting conversations with festival artists. David Rousséve is a renowned choreographer, writer, director, and filmmaker, as well as a longtime board member and juror of Dance Camera West. Along with his many accomplishments as a professor at UCLA and artistic director of the dance theater company Reality, David has been a dance film practitioner for decades. We discussed not only his work in screen dance, but also historical initiatives like the film commissioning art anthology series Alive from Off Center and the UCLA National Dance Media Project. You can learn more about these initiatives through the Envisioning Dance on Film and Video anthology series edited by Judy Mitoma, which actually makes a cameo in this conversation. David Rousséve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here.
Now, as much as I'd love to go through your entire body of work and all the numerous accomplishments, including a Guggenheim Fellowship, as well as professorships at Princeton and UCLA, among others, I don't think we have the many hours it would take to do that. So
That works for me.
But you're someone who, in the dance film space, has really borne witness to decades of the ebbs and the flows of the creation, presentation, and education of dance film practice. But let's actually start at the very beginning. I'm very interested what your first encounter with dance film was.
It was actually with Alive from Off Center, which is a PBS series. It was renamed Alive TV, but it was Alive from Off Center when I did it. And they would match up a choreographer with a filmmaker to create a dance film. But I think that the reason that happened is important because the way that I visualized my work, it felt like an organic transition into film. So it's almost like my engagement with film started before I started working in video/film. And because when I was in the studio, and I have no idea where it was from, I think maybe as a child, my generation, we saw so many films. And I noticed that when I started choreographing, I was using like a filmic language. I would say, oh, no, that's too abrupt. It's more like a crossfade and not a jump cut. Or I would say, because my work was all about this incredible intimacy, creating intimacy, but also acknowledging the vast plane on which that social plane on which that intimacy happened. So I was ironically trying to create like these, for better or for worse, epic pieces, but also where the individual and the emotional plight of the individual was paramount. And so I was constantly saying, no, that's a close-up. We're gonna figure out how to do it. I don't know how. On the stage of BAM, we're gonna get you in a close-up, but you have to look at that as a close-up. Don't perform it as a wide shot. It's too broad. And so I was constantly using the limited, but somehow very present film language that I had. And a producer from Dancing in the Streets, Elise Bernhardt, she thought, that's how I met Joe Malillo, who was the artistic director of the Brooklyn Academy of Music and did the Next Wave Festival. They brought me to Alive TV because they thought my work and my process were so filmic. And that it would really behoove, what if you could actually really do those close-ups and wide shots?
Exactly.
What if you could decide if it's a crossfade or a jump cut? And so that's what actually led me there was the actual work itself and the way that I thought of the work. And then that just seemed like a natural pathway into film.
Yeah, and from what I understand, the film Pull Your Head to the Moon came out of that.
Exactly.
Also, from what I understand, it was a very epic filming process and also a very epic learning process for you. What were your key takeaways from that creation and that process?
Oh my gosh, it was my first time and we were working in film, not video. It was my very first time, and I just saw the pacing of production, pre and then production, and then I was really involved in post with the woman who shot it and edited it was a African American filmmaker named Ayoka Chinzira, is an African American woman named Ayoka Chinzira. And we worked very closely on the process. And I saw how, for lack of a better word, tedious filmmaking can be. I saw literally the nuts and bolts, really tangible issues like we were shooting under the Brooklyn Bridge or shooting in the swamps of Louisiana, and yet relying on bodies for 8 hours a day, and bodies are getting cold and warming back up. And I saw in those days in the editing process, Ayoka has a dance background as well, which I just loved. So she had a really great idea of how movement needed to fulfill itself on the screen. But there were points where I would say, one more frame and that's going to be ecstatic. It's almost ecstatic now. I remember going, oh my gosh, going back and taking that tape off and then putting it, splicing, cutting off. And I thought, oh my God, that's to do one cut. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So really the nuts and bolts of filmmaking was so different for me. But I have to say that the outcome I found really exhilarating. There were, of course, I'm bitching and complaining, but there were, of course, so many amazing things that you could do that I could literally fulfill my vision in ways that I never could on stage. And I was really happy that for me, and everyone has their own path, that I was not trying to direct my first dance film or dance video, because I learned so much from Ayoka about what a producer does, about what a director does, about a shot list. We had a rigid shot list and there was no room to maneuver. So I learned a lot, and it really helped me with my live work as well, in terms of being prepared, in terms of thinking how to storyboard not only a film, but also live work. I think that the gift of having to edit relentlessly in film, whether that's someone else's or my own, has been such a gift, a painful as heck gift, but such a gift for live work and for film.
A little bit of a personal story time. The very first dance film workshop was a pre-production / post-production workshop that was given by Carrie Ann Shimsham around 2013, and one of the films that she showed was 2 Seconds After Laughter.
Oh, that's so great.
There's a sense of intimacy that you get with your work, but it's almost like you were mentioning, like this epic sense, like the very immersive sense that we see with work like that, as well as work like Bittersweet, which was created in 2005. And I'm very interested in what your process is like in communicating with the subject, and particularly with 2 Seconds After Laughter, because you are essentially telling someone else's story.
Yeah, that was a really interesting process. The performer in the film was the person that it was her autobiographical story. And her name is Sri Susilowati. And she's Indonesian, and she practices Javanese and Balinese dance and Sundanese. We focused on Balinese dance for 2 seconds. But it was a retelling of her story, or a telling of her story. We had created a live piece together called Saudade. And Sri was in that piece, and which really helps with why I even thought that I could tell the story. What I noticed, Saudade had all these global citizens on it. It was we had West African dance, and Olivier Tapaga was from West Africa. We had Indonesian dance. Sri was from Indonesia. We had South Asian dance. So we was a global, and we had African Americans in the piece, much like myself, Southern African Americans, European descended folks. And so you would think that Sri would be the one that I was the most different and distant from. And actually, listening, we talked a little bit about our life stories and her experience as an immigrant, which is what the piece focuses on, and the loneliness and alienation, and also joy that you feel from trying to fit in somewhere when you fit in nowhere, was so resonant for me. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's the beauty of, I guess, storytelling. This person that I should have nothing in common with is the one that I am the most in sync with in terms of our lives. And her story resonates so much for me. And so I decided, wow, let's tell your story, Sri, about what it's like to move to America and not only feel so different, but be so different. And where is home, and what is the nature of home in this transnational world? Because I felt those things as an African American, learning to navigate and code switch and be within an all-white community, which I'd been doing all my life. And so it was very resonant for me. And Sri felt that I could capture her story. And the way that we did it was to create the text for the film. I interviewed her, oh gosh, probably 20 times, and then chose with her help the stories that we wanted to focus on. And then I rewrote them, retaining as much of the sense and, if not the syntax of her story, at least the tone of her story. It helped throughout the film that Sri was the subject of the film, and she was in the film, and she really wanted to experiment. We worked very closely at the Indonesian Institute for the Arts of Yogyakarta, and there were a couple of scenes that the other women who are from Java and currently live there found challenging, and one in particular, which is core to the film, and it was just Sri wearing this incredibly regal, beautiful, traditional dancewear, hair, makeup, and costume around to cross the busiest street in Yogyakarta. And so it was this juxtaposition of this glorious, wonderful, incredible, quote unquote, traditional outfit, costume in this other part of Yogyakarta, which is busy downtown street, and people looking at her like, what is wrong with her? The Indonesians. All the way along the line, she was like that. When we came to a tricky place, and I would say, Sri, I don't know, I'm feeling this is maybe a little delicate. And I would err towards not filming that or not choreographically pushing the dancers as much as I would want. And she would relentlessly say, no, this is about experimenting more. And she felt that that was the core of her story, that she never fit in because she was so wacky and off kilter and forward thinking. And she felt, that's me. You have to push boundaries even within my culture.
I've had the pleasure of working in programming almost ever since that moment, and very few performances in screen dance have really felt so raw and like just so ripped open like that one. And
yeah, she was pretty amazing. That was where, with that film, because you're reminding me, our first version, which quite frankly I thought was the strongest, was 30 minutes. We had these phenomenal scenes we had 50 young women from the Indonesian Institute of the Art in a field doing the most exquisite abstract gesture combined with Indonesian dance. And it just all, we had Carrie Ann gave me one quote from a curator, and it was, if you're doing a 30-minute piece, it needs to be twice as good as a 15-minute piece. And
we go through this with screening committee meetings every single year. That quote comes up every year.
Oh my gosh. And she was like, do we want it to screen a lot? Or we do want it to screen once or twice? And I thought, a lot. So we got it down. We were hoping for 15. We got it to 16 minutes. I sit through my own work and I think, live work and film and think, oh, it's just too long. Um, and almost every film that I've seen in a theater, I think, wow, that was just too long. Since it used to be 2 hours was an hour and a half to two, and now it's like 2 hours to 3.5 hours for a commercial film. That I think,
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and that's also some, like, from the curatorial side, it's a responsibility that you kind of keep in mind as far as, like, what's the cultural production of this form? Like, if we're, constantly picking, like, 10 shorts and then maybe one feature, what's that doing to the rest of the form?
yeah,
And
exactly. Such great questions. Wow. Issues.
yeah, and we could, I mean, definitely over the last 10 years since the film, really traveled extensively, we've been seeing that, and especially with so many people jumping on the dance film train over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
We're seeing that more and more too. But as far as sort of creating these incubators or creating these concentrated spaces for dance film, you joined the UCLA faculty in '96, I believe it was.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was very soon after that the Center for Intercultural Performance there initiated the Dance Media Project, which ran for 3 years and led to a collection of very intensive gatherings, which led to a fellowship, like an educational fellowship program, as well as a book.
That's right.
that came out of it. And but like many initiatives in screen dance, we've seen, really dating back to the 40s, we'll see these initiatives pop up and then die out, and have sort of this system where a lot develops on these islands, and then not much emerges from that. I'm very interested what your experience with that program was. Like, what kind of work did you see emerge that had staying power?
Wow, that's a really great question. First of all, that I know of so few. It's such a challenge for the field with the field. For me personally, as a filmmaker and as a film viewer, there are so few with live work where your work can actually gestate. That's one of the reasons that I enjoy being in academia. You're not forced to keep regurgitating work if before it's ready. My films take less time. My live works take 3 to 5 years, and it's okay to take that long. I have found so little support in terms of the making of a film video. And all the grants that I would ordinarily apply to, and even the ones that I thought there was a little wiggle room, and I'm checking the bylaws, thinking, checking the grant guidelines, thinking, okay, I'm a primarily a creator of live work, but I also make films. Can I apply for this to make a film? And the answer is it has always been no. This is specifically for live work. And so it's in part that my next couple of one project in specific is a film, but that lack of programs that can house and support is definitely one of the reasons that I haven't been able to return as quickly to film. And I have to say, a lot of things came out of Judy Mitoma started and ran the programs at UCLA, and she had a couple of them, and they had impact on the artists who were there, but sustaining the actual program for the long run. And I'm happy that she was able to be forward thinking enough to say, what if a publication, something that has endurance and will be here so that folks can refer to it? What if that's one of the outcomes from this program? But what I've done is the cycle that you've mentioning. I've been able to watch it where there's a lot of percolation, and it does in fact affect. I went to the field and the artists. The artists come out of these programs changed, and they certainly did with the UCLA program. And so that's really great. But I think the impact on the field, the impact to then continue to affect the artistry of filmmakers, that's the part that's not there for me. And we'll see what happens. I think that it led from when I first arrived at UCLA in '96, there weren't a lot of dance filmmakers. And, everything in life is for better and for worse, meaning it has amazing stuff attached to it and it has not challenges. And I would say the pandemic, because we could not produce live work, out of necessity, everyone became a dance filmmaker. Everyone.
Exactly. Like it's like after years, decades of begging to take this work seriously, all of a sudden people realize, okay, here's a quote unquote new form that we can learn for.
You're like, wait, new form? Oh.
And I think that's another thing about the history of the form, that it does span so many years, but it's far and away the UCLA Dance Media Project, I think, is one of the more well-preserved instances. I remember when I was in college, like that was like the only book I could refer to find out more information. But as far as other initiatives, I mean, even just going back to the extensive history that UCLA has, even going back to like the Julie Dash films and like Allegra Fuller-Snyder's work and how instrumental it was in creating the form, a lot of that history is just not accessible.
That's so right. Yeah, even for those of us who were there. Lack of archives, lack of availability, direct availability of work, although it is slowly getting better. I think that's one of the issues with when and again, the great thing was, wow, there was a huge interest in dance filmmaking. And I saw some really strong films that were made, but there were also films just, when you have that number of people suddenly working within a farm, you would say, oh, wow, I wish that there were more work to see with an immediacy, because there was not a fluency in filmmaking. And I wasn't a film student either, so I can't say that I had much of a fluent. You learn as you go. I totally get it. But I think that if work were more readily available and there were programs to mentor artists, it would actually help the field as a whole and help all the folks who are coming up, some really brilliant artists in dance filmmaking, and with a renewed sense of, or a new sense of diversity, which is amazing. It kind of went, oh, well, anyone can make a film now. And I support that in many ways, but also wish that there were strong avenues of support and mentorship to help artistically.
And one of the themes I see as far as those who try to initiate mentorship or try to establish some kind of extended program for it is often it falls on the artist to continue doing that work themselves without some kind of institutional support. And I know a lot of screen dance artists see festivals as sort of these institutions and often have complaints about screening fees, but the majority of them are artist-initiated programs, including Dance Camera West. It's my understanding that you were involved or very much in the sphere of the organization as it was first evolving. And do you have any memories of what those early years were like, and what Kelly and Lynette and future leadership went through during that time?
Yeah, I was involved. I would say I was in the orbit as a viewer, and that every year, as the form emerged, and the festival emerged, as the form transitioned and morphed, and the Dance Camera West was such a great chance to just go in and see what was out there. That was the place where you could get what I was just saying, maybe sometimes it's not readily available. I would just spend the week at the whole festival to get a sense, and also then a lot of the work was being made where it was had more funding, which is in Europe. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those films really weren't accessible to me. And so you could almost receive mentorship from the screen, meaning see what's out there, what's being produced, what are the possibilities. And Dance Camera West was really important to me in that respect, especially when Kelly and Lynette were heading it at the beginning, because they had a very progressive aesthetic. And they were very much wanting to forward films that were, to use a cliche, pushing boundaries or expanding the form in some way. From the very beginning, they were interested in diversity of filmmakers, diversity of form. And so Dance Camera West was the place that I could go to be schooled about what was out there. And the culture of Dance Camera West was just amazing. In those days, it was held at Red Cat Theater, which already had this milieu of being, the avant-garde intersection of dance and performance, and Dance Camera West was a part of that culture as well. And so those first years were really important to me. That was when I thought, oh, I should make another film. I love this form. And then when I did make Bittersweet with a filmmaker, Robbie Shaw, shot it and edited it. Dance Camera West was very enthusiastic about premiering it, and we premiered it there. So even on that front, I was thrilled, honored, and just so delighted to have Dance Camera West go from something that I was a huge fan of to have them actually supporting the work.
So you actually have been involved as a board member with Dance Camera West for a while, and have also served as a jury member for quite a bit of time, including for the upcoming edition, which I'm also excited to be in that capacity. So jurying films in screen dance, which tend to come from many different impetuses and really take many different forms, which are not exactly easily categorized, let's say. Sometimes, I know I experienced this as a programmer when screening films, but it can sometimes be hard to evaluate films against each other, yet on their own terms. What is your approach as a jury member, and what are the considerations you have as far as evaluating whether a film is award worthy?
I think that for me, the best that we can, and we're still all subject to our own biases and backgrounds, and the only context that I have is a context that my brain has. So with that in mind, because we get such a diverse range of forms at UCLA, of genres of dance and techniques of dance, in particular in the early years, we had a lot of global dance represented in the department. And so with teaching students and seeing work from the very beginning, if I'm going to try to analyze someone's work and then also grade it, it's about entering into that person's perspective, world, and form as best I can. To try to, as opposed to judging it from my own aesthetic or what would, from my Western, African-American, alternative forms perspective, make for a good structure. I try as best that I can to, right off the bat, enter into the world of the filmmaker, the live artist, and then I try to carry that over into filmmaking. It's sometimes impossible, and you can never be completely fair, but because it's impossible to fully enter into that person's world. But I always try to understand what is their either stated intention. I actually personally really appreciate it when artists just present. You don't have to tell me what it is or what it's about, but 2 sentences about what's informing your work. And then I can see it from that perspective. How successful have they been for me in fulfilling their own purpose and intention? How are they seeing structure that's different from how I see it? And what's a really huge one for me would be, what type of resources are they working with? It's sometimes challenging to have a film with just mega budget, usually not from the US, but occasionally, combined with a film that was shot on an iPhone with zero budget. Although, to be honest, those iPhone films usually are kicking ass.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Lately, it's gotten hard for me not to go, oh, you had a big budget and you didn't do enough with it.
Yeah, especially the younger generation
Oh,
who's
my gosh,
who was raised on, basically raised on screen for better or for worse.
Exactly.
And now with the likes of TikTok and Instagram, like they're very, very fluent with how to create.
Exactly.
And frame their reality.
Yeah, and I have to say that speaking of looking at films, being required to comment or I'm avoiding the word judge or decide who gets which award, I will say that the quality of filmmaking, especially from younger folks, does go up and up. We'll see where the world ends up, but there are some issues around length and sustaining an idea for longer than a TikTok video. But maybe that's okay. I don't know. But they certainly are used to thinking visually and shooting, because they do it night and day, which I think is a great thing. So they have tangible experience with a camera. I'm very curious. I wish I could look in my crystal ball and see where we'll be artistically with film and live theater when this generation is now the dominant generation in terms of art making.
Yeah, it's hard to, I was very tempted to ask you, what do you see in that crystal ball right there? But it's hard to really say
that's so, yeah. I don't know. And maybe I would have been more able to answer that pre-pandemic, but I think we're still figuring out what the new normal is. I don't know. That's a really good question.
What would you like to see in the crystal ball?
With the arts, I actually am already mourning, maybe prematurely, the act of a community coming together, whether it's to see a film or to see a piece of live theater. They have this really cheesy, awful, and I love that everybody now hoots and hollers and makes fun of it. AMC has got with, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking.
Nicole Kidman?
Yes! It's so bad. It's absurd. But her point of, it's about coming together and experiencing this together as a community. That is actually a really good point. And I miss that with film as much as with live. Even like a blockbuster, quote unquote, which I'll see once in a while. And certainly art films, the list of films that I saw that I thought were, wow, just spectacular, and had, it was my husband and two other people in the audience, I am mourning the possible loss of that, while also trying to think, well, look at all the things that we can stream and that are available to us now. So I would hope that in the future that the joys that we have of being able to watch and screen films at home would be combined with the equally great joy of going into a theater and experiencing film as a community. I'm so happy that Dance Camera West is going to be live. Even during the height of the pandemic, we did a drive-in, and everyone just loved, even though you were in a separate car, we were texting each other. I had 5 cars there. We were friends. We thought, well, if we can't sit next to each other, we'll drive next to each other. And it was like being in a theater. We would text our opinions and, oh, did you see that? Did you see? And it was the communal aspect that deepens your not only enjoyment, but understanding of a film. I hope that doesn't get lost.
Absolutely. Film festivals, some have argued the relevance of dance film festivals, especially as so many more things go to streaming, but it's not only the curation of the films, but the curation of the experience and really the unpacking of what these very non-dictatorial works are communicating.
Exactly.
Well, David Roussève, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, my pleasure. I really enjoyed speaking.
This is Frameform, hosted by Hannah Weber, Jen Ray, and Claire Schweitzer. Edited by the Frameform team. and music by Mason Carlton. Thanks for listening.